golfed a little bit. I'm sore from that.
That'll get you. Well, it uses muscles.
It uses muscle I haven't used in a long time.
Right.
Go do the Orange Theory all I want. Do that well, but I golf once and I'm laid up.
You can then
because it's a tough sport.
Relax some of those with several of the beers that you usually drink while you're playing.
Yes, well, that was happening.
This was yesterday that you played?
No, this was what day was
hot.
it? This was Monday.
Yeah, a tad warm around here.
This was Monday, and then we were over at our Perianos, like we go over for 4th of July, and then we let off a few fireworks.
Did you have with sparklers? Is that what you have there? No, you've got.
No, we had the ones that go boom. We had the ones that aren't legal. Should I say that?
Is that the word we're looking for
yes,
here?
Not,
is
not
the word
legal?
illegal? I think that's probably right.
Yeah, I thought we were going down this year. It went on a little long. There was a lot of booms. All the neighbors kind of made their way out there and were cheering. And I thought, oh, God, this is going on a while. And then one unfortunately tipped over, and I took a firework to the chest.
See, this is
I
don't know that this is something we should or shouldn't be joking around about. What is the statute of limitations on the illegality of what it is you are currently admitting to having done? And then add to it the laughter at the dangerous nature of it.
Yeah, well, we weren't laughing then. I mean, I got behind a car quickly. We were trying to sacrifice a car at that point when it went just one time it went awry. But I guess that's all it would take, So all good. Everything else was safe. There was a little mishap there. No injuries to report. And as I said, I got a little nervous because we had a 36-shot finale that we still had to go, and I thought. Man, we're kind of taking this one a little long.
You're like a municipality.
We are. It's exactly right. It was a good one.
You should be out firing them over Lake Wallen Pawpack while everyone gathers around.
Well, there you go.
So
I take it you weren't doing that.
I was doing none of that. No,
have you ever shot off a firework?
No.
And
I've been to, I've gone to like the beach where they have the fireworks display.
Right. You have never personally lit
held
a
firework.
No.
I don't even know exactly what one would look like in its native form. Right. I remember
before it's transformed.
Exactly. I don't know if the native wasn't exactly the word I was looking for. Like a sparkler. When I was, you know what a sparkler is?
Oh, yes, I know what a sparkler is.
Which is essential. I don't know. It's like a match that gives off a couple little
sparkles. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that I've had, but no, outside of that, no. We never, in my family, shut off fire. We would go watch the fireworks.
Plus, it would be great growing up where you lived. How high up were you?
The 25th floor.
My God, shooting stuff out of your balcony would have been awesome.
Yes, we would have killed numerous people, but all in the aim of one spectacular
you just
moment.
Kind of let them know what's happening so they can be in the proper place.
Hold off the police. We have a 36-shot finale that we're still looking forward to. All right, before we continue admitting to any more criminal activity, let's get to Off the Top here. And as I mentioned, for the second consecutive year, July 4th provides a significant free agent signing. Now, this ain't KD and it ain't the Warriors, but it ain't bad. Mike Gordon Hayward is going to Boston.
Yep, consider you got Al Horford last year, Hayward this year. Formula worked for Ainge a decade ago when he traded for Garnett and Ray Allen in the summer of 2007, which eventually led to a championship. Hayward had his best numbers in points, rebounds, and this year of his career. Averaged 21 points a game. He joins Isaiah Thomas, who averaged about 29, to give the Celtics that next scoring threat. Boston hasn't had two players average at least 20 points a game in a season since the 2002 season with Paul Pierce and Antoine Walker. And this was the big news of the day, and they'll still, in the current form they are right now, and where Cleveland is, Cleveland's still a better team. So
I agree. That's interesting to me. I hadn't seen that part of the stats. So at no point during the big three.
Yeah, that they had two average. And I was surprised at that when I read that as well, to the point where I'm just trusting the people who gave it to me, because I would have thought that would have happened in those years.
Pierce, Allen, Garnett, you would have thought at some point two of the three of them would have averaged 20 points. Either way, they won a title. Let's see if this group can put together a championship run. Elsewhere, Clayton Kershaw, Mike, continues right now to be just untouchable, and the Dodgers continue to be head and shoulders the best team in baseball.
Yeah, really amazing. They're 16-2 when Kershaw starts this season. Best win percentage by any team. They're winning at 89% of his starts this year. He's the fifth Dodger pitcher in divisional era, which is since 1969, to win 13 games before the All-Star break, joining Oral Hershiser, Don Sutton, Tommy John, and Bill Singer. So Hershiser in '88 went on to win the NL Cy Young that year. So he is, again, doing what he does, but we're so used to this that we're still waiting for, when you make not only, you make your name, you make your legacy when?
In October, yeah.
And that's where you're just not seeing it out of him at this point.
Hembo, I'm going to give you a little assignment that you're going to enjoy. Give me whatever it is that has been this era of Clayton Kershaw's dominance, 5 years, 6 years, whatever it is. Give me some historical context. Give me these 5 years have been as good as what? Are they as good as Sandy Koufax? Are they? Who has put together a 5 or 6 year stretch, whatever the exact period is, of Kershaw? Because you're right. What we will sometimes look at now is, well, but he hasn't gotten it done in the playoffs,
right?
And which is fine and it's fair. It does not, however, change the fact that in the regular season, the last some number of years, it's between 4 and 7. I think he's been as good as anybody.
Well, he
ever
has, but we always talk about, especially with him and Bumgarner match up from the Giants. But then what Madison does in the postseason, as long as he stays off the dirt bike,
right,
it's pretty good.
Yeah, ain't going to be any postseason this year. Unfortunately for Madison, July 4th, a good day for Americans at Wimbledon. Mike, all of a sudden, we are taking over the All England Club.
18 American men and women are moving into the next round. That is the most Americans through to the second round of Wimbledon since 19, advanced back in 2004. 7 Americans in action today, including Donald Young, who's got a tough task at hand. He's going against Rafael Nadal. So Nadal is 23-2 in Grand Slam career against American players, and Young is only 1-14 in 15 career matches against opponents in the top 5. Venus Williams also in action today. A name to keep an eye on, Madison Brengle from the U.S. She's the only person to beat Serena Williams this year.
There's another big story that I want to get to out of Wimbledon today as well. Some interesting early storylines. And then back to basketball. A 3-team sign and trade is going to send Danilo Gallinari to the Clippers. So the Clippers, who for 1 second there looked like they might just lose everybody, are actually, despite the loss of Chris Paul, Mike, trying to put together something and remain near the top of the Western
Conference. Go back to what, 08, when he was the first-round pick of the Knicks? Number 6 pick overall. Their last 5 years has been in Denver. The high was 2 years ago where he averaged 19 points a game. This past year, 18 points. So, yeah, interesting. There's been some very interesting movement, obviously huge money going around that my brethren in football seem to have a more and more of a big problem with, and we can get into that a little bit. But as we saw last year, we see it again this year, just some monster money going around. 2 big-time players, but also 2 players that aren't your household names that are getting a lot of money. But, hey, more power to them. That's the sport right now.
And that is Off the Top with Mike and Mike, and it's brought to you by Zipa. Go to Zipa.com, ZYPPAH.com, and get a Zipa so you can stop snoring and enjoy the summer. We are glad to be back and better than ever here, Mike and Mike. Gordon Hayward, Mike, they ask us to put someone in the zone every week, and we'll certainly put Gordon Hayward in the zone. Here's a guy, I'll admit it, and I give him a lot of credit. When he came out of Butler, he had a shot in the air that would have beaten Mighty Duke to win the national championship, and then he had a decision to make. I was actually just reading his piece in Players Tribune in which he announced his decision to leave, and he wrote glowingly about Utah.
Yes,
and you know what? I can see all the fans in Utah just looking at it and going, blah, blah, blah. You still left us. At the end of the day, what's he going to do? If he wants to go play in Boston, if he wants to go someplace he thinks he has a better chance to win, if he wants to be reunited with his college coach, if he wants to make a decision he thinks is best for himself, there isn't any way to do it that isn't going to hurt the feelings of the fans you leave behind. I thought he wrote a really nice, heartfelt, felt like very honest piece in which he talked about growing up. He writes, Mike, that he was 20 years old when he got to Utah. He and his dad drove there in his car from Indiana, that the only thing he knew was how to get to practice. He knew where the Subway was. I don't mean that in a New York sense, but the Subway sandwich where he ate all the time. Right. And he went home and played video games. And that was it. That was his whole life. And now here he is 7 years later. He has a wife. He has 2 kids. And he basically writes thank you to Utah for helping him grow up and helping him turn into a man. And now he leaves, and what's he going to do?
It's really kind of a no-win situation.
It's no-win.
You can just leave and not say anything of which you'll get ripped, and you can leave and write a 2,100-word essay and thanking people, and people will look at that as, oh, get out, delete, not even reading it. I mean, so it seems like I don't know him at all, but, you just kind of explained how the start of his 7 years were there, and I think he truly is going to miss where he was, but he's moving on to what he thinks is going to be greener pastures. That's what free agency is all about. The team you leave, those fans, that doesn't mean they have to understand, and accept that, and that's fine. But I like what he wrote. I thought it was nice what he said. But I can understand if people there say blah, 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 move on, we'll see you.
Meanwhile, in Boston, they're obviously excited to get this player, and you want to make the obvious Larry Bird connections and comparisons as he goes to Boston. Hayward grew up in Brownsburg, Indiana. That's about 2 hours from French Lick. He played college basketball at Butler. That's about an hour from Indiana State. And both Hayward and Bird lost their final college basketball games in the national championship game. So there are all of those comparisons as he goes now to play for Larry Bird's former team and tries to lift them to the levels that Bird once took them. This kid is not Larry Bird by any means, don't get me wrong, but he is a very good player and a very nice piece to the puzzle. The question remains, do the Celtics have a transcendent player? And if they don't, and one could argue they don't, Isaiah Thomas had a phenomenal year, and Hayward is really good, and Horford is really good. But the question is, can you put together a collection of, do you want to call them A-minus players? And can you do that and win a title in the NBA? The last team to do it would be the Pistons when they won it with Larry Brown, whatever year that was. They beat the Lakers, 2004, I think it was. That's the last team to win a championship without a surefire first-ballot Hall of Fame all-time great.
I think we have to understand that Danny Ainge, while he had a plan, and I think they would have rather had Paul George than or both, but if you were going to pick one or the other, you'd rather have Paul George, right? Basically the same age.
Well, the only difference is that George you're only getting for 1 year. This guy now you're getting to build around. But in a vacuum, yes, George is a better player than Hayward.
Is a better player than Hayward. They would have liked them both, but they got the one. I think what we have to understand is a lot of people got on Ainge for not making that move when they were number one in the conference last year and maybe try and do something this past year, be it George or be it with Jimmy Butler at that time, who has gone on to Minnesota. But he had a plan, and everybody's trust the process. The Sam Hinkie line there is trust the process. I think what we have to wait for in Boston is this isn't over. You don't accumulate all the picks that you have and put yourself in position to say, that's our move. That was it. Gordon Hayward, we're good. Because you're not beating Cleveland now with the team you have. If you still have to give up, maybe Smart or
Crowder.
Still may be gone from this team.
A salary cap perspective.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this isn't it. So it's not like I'm looking at this saying Danny Ainge just got the finished product to the Celtics. He didn't, but he got a nice piece that's going to be there for a little while. But does anybody think? Y'all saw that series last year, right, with Cleveland?
Yeah.
We all saw that. Do we think that is going to be different? Maybe a little closer now, but would Cleveland not be heavily favored again? And I know people are going to say, oh, you're from Cleveland. No, would anybody realistically think if Cleveland stayed exactly the same and the Celtics added Hayward, or have to lose some pieces there, that now, they're going to be Cleveland and represent? They're not. So I guess that's what I would say is Danny Ainge isn't done, whether it's now, a little while from now, trading deadline, next year, whatever. They still have a lot of assets to use, so he doesn't have the finished product yet. And just what everybody is doing. Look at all the moves that are going on. Everybody's just kind of building. What can we say from everything we saw? We'll break it down, but I'll give you one overlook right now. It's Cleveland and Golden State in the finals next year. Does anybody think any differently? This was the first, because did anything, the question you have to ask, did anything happen in the West? Because that's where everybody went. Gordon's the first star to come over to the East.
Yeah.
Everybody went West, young man, to go against Golden State. Did any team build themselves up enough at this point that you say they can beat Golden State? And is any team in the East, ready to beat Cleveland? And the answer is no. So I don't know if anybody expected a 1 year, maybe they thought the teaming up, maybe they thought, that the Paul George would end up in Houston with Chris Paul and James Harden, that maybe that would be something that they would form once we saw Chris Paul go there. Carmelo Anthony, I don't think, forgetting Cleveland, because Cleveland's already the favorite in my eyes to make it back to the finals. So if Carmelo goes to Houston, do we think that's doing it? Do we think all of a sudden, oh yeah, that's the piece? We don't. So while all these moves happened, none happened, I don't think, at this point where you say this year anything is going to change, but it's tough to do in 1 year. Remember, Golden State had the big three to build off and added Kevin Durant. The others are trying to accumulate a big 2 or a big 3 and then build from there.
And by put Gordon Hayward in the zone. That's brought to you by AutoZone. Drive the new Duralast GT brake pads, proven tough from the tracks to the streets, and sold only at AutoZone. Get in the zone. AutoZone. Let me further illustrate how right you are. You are right, and I think you're making an even bigger point, which is this is an indication of just how much distance there was between Cleveland and everyone else and Golden State and everyone else, because the top contenders did get much better. Boston just added an all-star.
Yes, they did.
Added an all-star. Yes. Oklahoma City added an all-star. Houston added an all-star. And yet none of them are threatening. And I agree with you that none of them even remotely look like a threat to Golden State or to Cleveland. So that is more an indication. Cleveland beat Boston 4-1. They outscored them by a combined total of 100 points. It's the most one-sided conference final in NBA history. I thought all of it was in Game 2.
Right. Yeah.
They won Game 2 100-0.
They did.
So that distance, so the Celtics drafted this kid, Jason Tatum, who I like, who can score, but he's a 19-year-old rookie. And they added Hayward, who's a very good, but in my opinion, not great player. And maybe he's a great player, but there's a level above great.
Right.
He's not on the level with the apex players in the NBA, of whom there are maybe 7 or 8.
Yeah, he's not a superstar status. No.
Yeah, I don't think so either. So he's a really, really nice piece to the puzzle. But you need to have one great player, or you're just kind of waiting out and hoping Cleveland leaves. The way we do our rankings of NBA players, our analytics group puts together rankings. Out of the top 14 players in the NBA, how many of them do you think play in the Eastern Conference?
1.
Correct.
I saw it. It's LeBron.
Saw it. It's LeBron. He's the only one. LeBron James is the only one of the top 14 players in the NBA who play in the East. So that would actually, Mike, lend credence to your theory that he wouldn't leave. Why would you leave Cleveland and go play with the other 13 best players when you can have all the worst players and have to just beat them and then only have to beat one of those teams
in the finals,
on the other side? I saw conflicting reaction to the decision of Chauncey Billups to pass up on the Cavs GM job. Right. On the undefeated, meaning Chauncey, talked about how this was just about the timing. It wasn't about LeBron. I saw a lot of other people saying, yeah, of course he's going to say that, but at the end of the day, it is about LeBron.
Right.
Who knows? Who knows where the reality lies? But one way or another, as long as LeBron is in Cleveland right now, they look like a walk.
They do, and it's all intriguing, with Jimmy Butler. What's going to happen in Minnesota? They do trade Rubio away, but I mean, what's developing there? I still like what's going on in Milwaukee. What happens in Houston? Oh, by the way, what can Chris Paul do after this year? He can leave, right?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. So I mean, while some guys have the longer deals. We talk about the stars moving around. Chris Paul can do it again next year.
So can Paul George.
So, yeah, exactly. So we don't even know where they went this year. They'll make those teams better, but then we don't even know what's happening next year. That'll be the big buzz because that's when LeBron will be free. Will everybody be going somewhere together at this point?
Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance are guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. I'll tell you who I give a lot of credit to and who I respect the heck out of, and that is Sam Presti. I mean, he and the Thunder are not going quietly into that good night. They have every conceivable disadvantage. This is a guy who drafted Kevin Durant. He drafted Russell Westbrook. He drafted James Harden. He couldn't afford to keep them all because this was in the days before the big salary caps. So he moved Harden. I was about to say the right one. Who knows if it was the right one. But he moved a guy when he felt that he had no choice but to do so. Otherwise, they'd still be together. He did everything he could to hang on to Durant. Now he's doing everything he can to hang on to Westbrook, including finding a way to get Paul George for Victor Oladipo and Sabonis, which is incredible to me. And all these people who are saying Danny Ainge fell asleep at the wheel, I'll just say this. You tell me, if Danny Ainge was offering all those huge draft picks that they have right now, is there any conceivable chance that Indiana would have said, nah, we don't want that. We'll take what they're giving us from OKC? I can't believe that to be true.
I can't either.
I know people were suggesting it, but there's just no way in the world that could be true.
Danny Ainge didn't want to rent the player for the year. Danny Ainge has a plan. I listen, as I said, it's not done. The plan isn't done. It wasn't, oh, yeah, Gordon Hayward, now we're good. I mean, they're still going to build. You have to wait and see what Tatum does, your draft pick as well. But I do think I like what they're building there. And as we mentioned, unless you got a few of those guys together, it's Cleveland's team until LeBron is not LeBron anymore or LeBron leaves, which I still somewhat question. So, Presti, I'm with you. And also the Warriors. Look at them. We talked about, it wasn't the stars we know are under contract and how they are going to be together a couple of years. I said, they're going to have trouble hanging on to their guy. Sean Livingston back. West back. Iguodala back. I thought for sure he was going to be gone back. They're keeping those guys as well as the stars. Now, in my opinion, the run to say for the next 5 to 7 years is ludicrous. I don't think there's any way they're all staying together that long. I give it a couple of more years, but man, they're doing it. They're keeping those guys. We all know about Durant taking less money, certainly helping from the luxury tax payment that's going out as well. So they're keeping everybody together. So all the movement, all the money that went around, and we do the whole thing a year from last year when Durant made us say Golden State and Cleveland in the finals, to me, nothing's changed. We've moved some pieces on the board a little bit, but I think we're going to look for the same outcome next year, and then we wait and see where the board moves again.
The more things change, the more they stay the same. You'll hear from our insiders on all of this NBA movement as we continue. Next, we're just getting started. Tons of big news out there on this 5th of July. Also coming up, when is honesty not even close to being the best policy? You'll hear a good example of it in this hour. But right now,